All right, we're back with a number 6 edition of The Road to the Antichrist here on the Third Rail. Thank you for watching whenever you watch it. So I get triggered a lot, and so I see something, somebody says something, I want to say something about it, and so I'm no different than you are. I'm no different than anybody else. We want to just take care of business and just stay involved. So, wanted to say a little prelude here. 2 days ago, I believe it was 2 days ago, I did a video on Instagram. It was about a story in the States here where a drug dealer, a convicted drug dealer, was sentenced to prison, and then President Trump commuted his sentence. So I asked the question, I thought we were killing drug dealers. Why are we letting them out of prison? Well, then I found out that he was Jewish, and I raised the question, did Bibi force Trump to let the guy go? I don't know. Bibi is Trump's master. We know that. The picture of Bibi sitting down at the table and Trump pulling out his chair for him is sickening. But we know that Congress is owned by AIPAC, which is the Israeli lobby that's unregistered and illegal, really. But they don't have to register, and so they can do whatever they want without announcing what they're doing. However that works, I don't know. But so anyway, I had posted the video on Instagram, and of course it went to a couple of other locations, and there was a comment made, and it was just, I don't know. The guy was, I know the guy. I've blocked out his name, but, we just want to, oh, got stuff popping up here. All right. So we just, like I said, he was trying to be funny, I think. I know the guy, he's a good guy, I think, but he was making a comment about me saying that, I thought we killed drug dealers, and the reference was to the Venezuelan boats being blown up, the passengers being killed, murdered by the United States government under the leadership of President Donald J. Trump. I call it murder. That's what it is. It's no due process. He doesn't know who's on the boats. And then there was a story, I don't have it here to pull up, but there was a story just recently where it looks like Britain was giving us the intel, supposedly, on this, and they stopped doing it. They said, wait, what you're doing is illegal. You can't just go and blow up boats. What normally happens, by the way, these are in international waters. They are nowhere close to the United States. So what the Coast Guard would do is stop a boat, a ship, and then, of course, board it. I'm not sure how they have that authority in international waters. Somebody could educate me on that. I don't know. I'm sure there's probably some international agreement through the United Nations. which allows them or any country to stop a boat that's suspected of being involved in criminal activity and to abort it. And then, of course, if there were drugs found or illegal weapons or whatever, to arrest the occupants of the boat and confiscate the boat and the goods in it and so forth. And then, of course, prosecute those involved. And if they were found guilty, then put them in prison. By the way, we need to build more prisons in this country. There are far too many people in prison for things that shouldn't be illegal. But anyway, back to the point. This gentleman posted this comment on my video, and I just want to show it to you here real quickly here. All right, so here we go. He says, normal folks don't run 4 or 5 engines on go-fast boats. Normal folks don't run 4 or 5 engines on go-fast boats. Now, let me just say this. The gentleman that said this is a Christian. Let me put it up there again. Normal folks don't run 4 or 5 engines on go-fast boats. So what is he saying? He's saying that if you have a boat and you have too many motors on it, then we can kill you. That's what it sounds like. Normal folks don't run 4 or 5 engines on go-fast boats. Since when is it the job of the President of the United States to determine if a boat coming out of a foreign country in South America has too many motors? Yeah, I'm waiting for an answer. Yeah, I don't think that's the job of the President of the United States or the Secretary of Defense or War, whatever they call them now. To say, hey, look, there's a picture of a boat. It's got 4 or 5 motors. Maybe it's got 6 motors. I think we need to blow it up because it's probably got drugs on it. Now, the other thing that my friend, not thinking too well on this comment is, number one, how that makes a Christian look to justify murder because they have too many boats or motors on their boat. No due process. It's okay with the Christian. It's okay with this guy to go ahead and just kill him. Now, this guy's a missionary in the United States to a certain city, and he's a good guy, I'm sure. I'm sure he's a good guy. I know he's a good guy. He's not thinking when he writes this. It's a stupid comment. In fact, I'll say this. If I was financially supporting this guy, I would reconsider my support. If he felt that way, that it's all right for a Christian or anybody to murder people without due process, you wouldn't get a dime of my money. You certainly wouldn't. So now we can determine whether or not we can kill you by the number of engines you have on your boat. Now, the other thing that he didn't think about, obviously, and people have said this has been said over and over and over again about these boats, is that they're not large boats. They don't have the fuel capacity to come to the United States. That's not their destination. They would never make it to the United States unless they stopped at island after island after island to refuel. No, we don't know. We have no business. It's wrong. It's morally wrong. It's illegal. It's probably violation of some international treaty. And of course, other countries won't say anything because we pay everybody money. So therefore we get off scot-free. I just don't get it. I don't get it. So I just wanted to come on tonight and talk about that. I think it's horrible. I think that it's wicked. I don't think any Christian should justify that. And this goes right back to, and we want to talk about Gaza. Now, I was reading stories just today about the West Bank and the atrocities being committed and they have been committed for months and years. And there's a treaty, and I am no expert on this. I mean, there's just almost too much information to try to just glean that. Look, I am not another country first. I'm America first. So, anyway, that's what we're talking about. and it's upsetting to me. Christians ought not to be joking about it, about the deaths of other people. I don't know, but you say, well, we just don't know. Here we go. You hear this, well, we just don't know. You say these folks probably lost. We would hope that Bible-believing Christians, people that are followers of Jesus Christ, would not be involved in drug trades. Yes, it happens. Yes, there are Christians that are involved in drugs. It is a wicked, wicked business. I think I've said this before. Years ago, we knew a man back when we lived in another state that just battled continuously with his drug addiction. He was a believer. It gets its hooks into you. It's difficult. It's difficult. So, don't get in it. Just say no. I just don't understand. I'm different. When I was in high school, I never smoked. I never drank alcohol. I've never smoked a cigarette. Before I was a Christian, I never smoked a cigarette. I never took a drink of alcohol. Never did any illegal drugs. Before I was a Christian. Now, those people that have done that, and then of course they get hooked on it and they get saved. Just because you get saved doesn't mean that it's going to be instantaneously solved in your life. That problem, that addiction, the chemical reactions in your body are not going to just stop. They're not just going to go away. You're going to deal with that. Some people, the Lord gives them deliverance, and we rejoice about that. Other people will struggle with that for their entire life. So let's not be joking. Let me put this back up here again. Yeah, if they only had 3 motors, if they only had 3 engines, they'd get a pass. They'd still be alive today. Yeah. You got 4 or 5 motors on a boat in the Caribbean. Huh. I think we ought to blow you up, kill you. That's what we ought to do. All right, now let's move on to something else here. Saw this today. I heard just yesterday or today, somebody made the comment that the average age for a person first buying a home is now approaching 40 years of age. The American dream is supposedly home ownership. That's part of it. And it's something that people can't do anymore. Young people cannot do it. Young people still have to live with mom and dad. They can't afford it. None of this is being discussed in the halls of Congress because they don't care. It's not their job to care. All their job is to create situations to benefit themselves, to steal your liberty, and to steal your money. That's what else? Do we need more laws about anything? It's amazing how many laws we need. Every law is an invasion on your privacy and your freedom and your liberty. I'm not a fan of the United States government. I believe we ought to have one. I believe God has ordained governments. And in the Bible, in the Word of God, God talks about good governments and bad governments. And that bad governments are a strain or a weight on the people. And that's what we have now. We've had for decades. It doesn't get better. It gets worse because we allow corrupt people. Now we're allowing people that are foreign born. That's been an issue that's been talked about online. I don't know the answer to that because the Constitution doesn't give any say about that. I mean, they have requirements. If you meet the requirements, then you can be in Congress. If you meet the requirements, you can be president. Of course, we've had people that don't meet the requirements that have still been elected president. And of course, people don't care about that. People don't mostly care about anything about the Constitution. That's just it. That's just it. So let's look at this article here. Let me bring this up. Talking about home ownership. Foreclosures surge 20% as Americans struggle to pay mortgages and fears of 2008 style crash soar. All right. So, yeah, a new trend foreshadowing a housing market crash. Foreclosures. What's it up to? It says in here somewhere, new data, more homeowners falling behind on their mortgages. October, there were 36,766 foreclosure filings, the first step in the process. And here we go. States with the most foreclosures per population is number one is Florida. All those baby boomers moved down there to retire and bought property they couldn't afford. I guess I really don't know. I don't know why it's so high in Florida. You would think that it wouldn't be so high. I don't know, but look at the states that are in the top list. That's amazing. It's not good, folks. It's not good. How many here? Let's see here. 20% up from 2024. 20%. 20%. That's out incredible. Now, back in 2008, of course, it was high. They had those adjustable rate mortgages that really, really burn people. So, anyway, it's high. It's horrible. So owning a home is a good thing. I know people that don't want to own a home. They rent all the time. They rent. So yeah, you can look this up on the Daily Mail. You can find it. Search for the title. I found this on Drudge Report. If you want to go look on Drudge Report, you can find it. And it's there. You want to read it. So it's pretty interesting. It's sad. It's tragic. So maybe these people maybe they own boats with too many motors. You think? I don't know. Anybody think that could be it? Yeah, maybe they have boats with too many motors. And that's why they can't pay their mortgage. Job losses are up. The dollar is not doing well. Gold is sky high. Can you imagine paying $4,200 for an ounce of gold? For an ounce of gold. I remember eons ago when I was in the Air Force, his name was Bert. And I'm sure Bert is no longer with us. He was a World War II veteran. But Bert he was a great guy, civilian. I worked with a lot of great civilians. Great guys. Bert would walk around flipping a Cougaran. That's an ounce of gold. I think it's German, invented in Germany. But he used to collect and have a whole bunch of those. Back then they were, of course, it's all relative. People didn't make the money then that they make now because, inflation. Yeah, you make, if you make $50 an hour now, what is that? $2,000 a week, $100,000 a year. That is middle class, maybe a stable sort of middle class. But there are people out there that are making $100,000 or more that are struggling. And I've read stories of people at that income level going to food banks. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. Our federal government, of course, can't do anything about it. But what they are doing and have been doing for the last 50 years is making it worse so that people like you and me can live the American dream. So now you have to be 40 years of age. And now President Trump comes out and says, well, let's have a 50-year mortgage. Now, somebody tell me, but isn't that common in like England and Europe? I heard that the mortgages in those countries is so long that you pass it down to family members. That's the only way they can own property, is to start at some point, and the mortgage is going to outlive them, and then their kids will get it, their grandkids will get it, and keep the property in the family. That's the only way they can afford it. They can't do it. And that's coming that way here because the dollar is devalued. It's devalued because of inflation. By the way, I heard this today on another podcast I was watching. When prices of goods go up, for example, remember when eggs were like $50 a dozen? Well, that's not inflation. They say, oh, look at inflation. People would say that. No, that's not inflation. That's supply and demand. Biden, under his administration, they killed about 1 million chickens. Well, there's no chickens, there's no eggs. So the ones that do are still alive and still able to lay, they're not as many. Therefore, they're more rare. Therefore, the price goes up. That's not inflation. Inflation is your dollar losing value. I mean, sometimes maybe you think you're talking semantics, but it's a different thing. The same with gasoline going up and down, going up. It's not necessarily inflation, although some of it is because your dollar's worth less because of the fluctuation of price of oil and the games that they play with that. And, I always wondered, years ago, we drove through, I think it was 2008. We had to go back to my home state and get some furniture, family furniture, and bring it back. We flew back, we rented a U-Haul, my wife and I, and we drove back and we had to cut through Texas, which it's interesting. I've driven through Texas from Arkansas down to El Paso. I've driven through Texas from El Paso down through Houston. I've done it both ways. It takes forever. It's nothing wrong with the drive. It's just, when you're driving across country, you always, sort of click it off by states. Oh, I've got to go through Nebraska. I've got to go Kansas, Iowa. And but Texas, it's like 3 days, it seems like. But anyway, so we're coming through Texas, and so we're coming down south of Dallas, down through the cities down there on what is it, Interstate 35, 20, whatever it is, and you can see the oil pumps out in the fields, and then we passed a refinery. This was in 2008. It was FINA, FINA, and we saw FINA gas stations, and we saw FINA refineries. And these pumps were owned by FINA, pumping oil out of the ground. So they owned the pumps. They had the oil. They refined it. They sent it to their gas stations. But it was the same price as gas from imported oil from Saudi Arabia. Yeah. It's a scam. It's like clothing. Why does a small shirt cost the same as an extra large shirt? Doesn't the small shirt have less material? Shouldn't it cost less? I'm just saying. All right, folks. That's about all I've got. I appreciate your time. And let us know if there's anything you want us to talk about. Until next time. Later. This